Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the West Milton Council meeting for December 2022. I'd like to ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray together. Father, we thank you and we praise you for who you are. We thank you for the privilege that we have to be able to have a town like we have. And we thank you for your blessings upon us, this community. We thank you for many, many through the years, men and women who have just committed a lot of time, a lot of effort, and in our behalf. And Lord, that's a marvelous thing. And so, God, we ask for your blessing on this meeting. This is a December meeting, and we're thinking about Christmas, and it's such an awesome thing to think about that the Creator was willing to become part of His creation so that His creation, men and women and boys and girls through faith, could be a part of His eternity. And God, we praise you for that. We celebrate that. We ask for your anointing upon this time. We ask that certainly you might be uplifted, and Lord, you might use these men and women on our behalf in a special way tonight, God, so that we might continue to reap your blessing upon our community, God. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Dorman?
Here.
Ms. Kopp? Here. Mr. Hurst?
Here.
Mr. Horn? Ms. Metz? Here. Mr. Tracy?
Here.
Mayor Miller?
Here. At the November workshop,
Thank you.
Councilman Dorman was absent, and this evening, Councilman Horn is absent. Are there any motions to excuse those members for the meetings?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to excuse the aforementioned members for the meetings.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Dorman?
Abstain.
Ms. Kopp?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Ms. Metz? Yes. Mr. Tracy?
Yes.
Mayor Miller?
Yes. Council should have received the minutes for the regular meeting on November the 8th and the workshop on November 22nd. Are there any motion to approve the minutes?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes for November 8th and November 22nd, 2022.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Dorman?
Yes.
Ms. Kopp?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Ms. Metz? Yes. Mr. Tracy?
Yes.
Mayor Miller?
Yes. Manager Sheridan, is there any correspondence to council?
None has been received, Mayor.
All right, thank you. At this time, we'd like to open the floor up to comments from citizens regarding tonight's legislation.
Good evening. I was here, I think it was the October workshop, and we had a conversation about the new discharging firearms ordinance. I did get a chance to review a proposed change to that. That does not address the concerns that I had, at least at the workshop, to the extent I would like to see. I do believe that council can address the concerns that you have regarding people wildly shooting firearms off into the sky, and also having the police department have the ability to shoot at the shooting range, while not restricting people's right to hunt within the city and shoot at targets the way that we've done traditionally in West Milton for generations, long before I was around. I did get a chance to email the manager what I would like to see happen as far as legislation on that issue. So I would ask that the council not vote to approve the proposed ordinance tonight, but maybe at a workshop discuss some ideas from citizens on how to address those concerns.
Two things, Mr.
Yes.
Coate. One, for our record of minutes, can I get you to state your name?
Yes, my name is Brandon Coate. I'm a resident here of West Milton.
Thank you, Mr. Coate.
Yep.
Second, I believe that you submitted to Manager Sheridan this today.
That's
Is that
correct.
correct? A copy or a draft
Just some
form
proposed
of-
language that you might consider
Yeah.
that I think might address everybody's concerns.
And that has been included in our that was added to tonight to all of our packets,
Right,
so.
everyone has received.
So that is something additional tonight that we can consider, so.
Very good.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Coe. All right. All right. Seeing no other comments, moving on to ordinances and resolutions. First is CM-22-53. I'll turn that over to Ms. Brosh.
It's an ordinance to appropriate funds necessary for the various departments and offices of the municipality of West Milton, Ohio for the year 2023.
Thank you. Manager Sheridan?
And this is the second reading of the budget. It's, does, I believe, include some of the goals that the council's established for the upcoming year. And one of the primary goals is it does include some significant pay increases for our staff.
Very good. Any discussion or questions with council? Is there a motion for the ordinance?
Make a motion, we accept CM-22-53.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Mr. Dorman?
Yes.
Ms. Cobb?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Ms. Metz? Yes. Mr. Tracy?
Yes.
Mayor Miller?
Yes. Next is CM-22-54.
It's an ordinance amending Chapter 53 Garbage, Refuse, and Recyclables of the Code of Ordinances for the municipality of West Milton, Ohio.
Manager Sheridan?
And this too is the second reading. This was the work that Mr. Herron put into bringing our ordinance up to date to recognize the fact that we now do this in-house as opposed to with a contractor.
Any questions or discussion about the ordinance with the council? Is there a motion?
Make a motion, we accept CM-22-54.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Dorman?
Yes.
Ms. Cobb?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Ms. Metz? Yes. Mr. Tracy?
Yes.
Mayor Miller?
Yes. Next is CM-22-55.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to table CM-22-55.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And just for the record, or for the minutes, CM-22-55 is the ordinance amending the discharging of firearms. So we're gonna table that and plan on adding that to the workshop discussion for January's workshops.
Sounds good.
All right. Moving on to CM-22-56. Ms. Brosh.
It's a resolution to amend resolutions CM-19-16 and CM-20-08, a revised organizational structure with job classifications by title, staff levels, and assigned pay grades with ranges. Whereas on September 10th, 2019, Council passed Resolution CM-19-16, a revised organizational structure with job classifications by title, staff levels, and assigned pay grades with ranges, which was further amended by the passage of Resolution CM-20-08. And whereas the municipal manager has recommended a revision to the compensation schedule and police department pay grade schedule. And whereas council has reviewed the proposed revision and wishes to implement the changes as recommended by the manager. Now therefore be it resolved by the council of the municipality of West Milton, Ohio, that Section 1, the classification compensation schedule, and the police department pay grade schedule shall be amended as of January 1st, 2023, as stated in Exhibit A, attached hereto and incorporated herein, as if fully rewritten. Section 2, this resolution shall take effect and be in full force from and after the earliest date permitted by law, and all other ordinances or resolutions or parts of ordinances or resolutions in conflict with this resolution are hereby rescinded.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is a complementary resolution to the 2023 budget. So this is the other part of making those changes to recognize the pay increases that are put in the budget.
Any questions or discussion for the resolution? Is there a motion for the resolution?
Yes, I will make a motion to accept CM-22-56.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Dorman?
Absolutely, yes.
Ms. Cobb?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Ms. Metz? Yes. Mr. Tracy?
Yes.
Mayor Miller?
Yes. Next is CM-22-57. Ms. Brosh.
It's an ordinance amending section 150.333C, Certificate of Zoning Compliance of the West Milton Code of Ordinances. Whereas council has determined that it is in the municipality's best interest to promote the development and improvement of the downtown business district. And whereas council believes that in order to achieve this goal, a specific area shall be created known as the downtown business district, and the 1.5% development fee shall be waived for businesses located within this area. Now therefore, the municipality of West Milton, Ohio hereby ordains as follows, that Section 150.333C, Certificate of Zoning Compliance shall be amended to read as follows. Section 150.33C, Certificate of Zoning Compliance, C. These provisions shall apply to all buildings and structures, including accessory buildings and structures, and land uses, except the raising of crops and other agricultural uses. In addition, the downtown business district, referenced in the shaded region in the below map, shall be exempt from the 1.5% development fee. Section 2, this ordinance shall be effective on and after the earliest date permitted by law.
Manager Sheridan.
Yeah, this is one of the first steps of taking the downtown master plan and incorporating some of the recommendations. So we're trying to encourage greater development and redevelopment in the downtown. And by waiving the 1.5% development fee only in that area of the village.
Is there any discussion or questions with council? Yeah, excuse me, that is an ordinance. All right. Thank you, Scott. Moving on to CM-22-58. Ms. Brosh.
Let's see this one. It's an ordinance to amend the 2022 appropriations and declaring an emergency. Whereas council by ordinance CM-21-43 adopted 2022 appropriations for the various funds utilized by the municipality. And whereas it is necessary to adjust the appropriations to reflect unanticipated expenditures. Now therefore be it ordained by the council of the municipality of West Milton that Section 1, the following amendments to the 2022 appropriations of the municipality of West Milton, Ohio are hereby made. In the general fund, personal services for general government, the current appropriation is $339,375. It's amended by a negative $55,000 with an amended appropriation of $284,375. For total personal services of a current appropriation of $1,489,925, amended by the negative $55,000, for an amended appropriation of $1,434,925. Total other expenditures, I guess to make it easier, I'll read the current appropriation, the amended by, and then the amended appropriation, so I don't have to keep stating them
please,
over
thank you.
again. Total other expenditures, $879,572, amended by the $59,000 for $938,572. For a total general fund of $2,419,497, amended by $4,000 for $2,423,497. Special revenue funds, the street construction and maintenance, total personal services, $99,500, amended by $5,000 for $104,500. Total other expenditures of $131,900, amended by $13,000 for $144,900. For total street construction and maintenance of $231,400, amended by $18,000 for $249,400. State highway is $26,500, amended by $2,000 for $28,500. For total special revenue funds of $546,150, amended by $20,000 for $566,150. The debt service funds, OPWC, of $6,520.58, amended by $3,260.29 for $3,260.29. For total debt service funds of $6,520.58, amended by $3,260.29 for $3,260.29. The Enterprise Fund, Water Capital Improvement, total other expenditures of $1,064,750, amended by a negative $876,000 for $188,750. Transfers to Water Capital Debt Service of $168,521, amended by a negative $16,000 for $152,521. Total Water Capital Improvement of $1,233,271, amended by a negative $892,000 for $341,271. Sewer Capital Improvement, total other expenditures of $797,250, amended by a negative $301,000 for $496,250. For total sewer capital improvement of $803,771, amended by a negative $301,000 for $502,771. Water Capital Debt Service of $168,518.98, amended by a negative $16,683.28 for $151,835.70. Refuse Fund, Personal Services of $118,500, amended by $5,000 for $123,500. Total other expenditures, $333,600, amended by $96,000 of $429,600. Total Refuse Fund of $452,100, amended by $101,000 for $553,100. The Water Fund, total other expenditures of $606,717, amended by $76,000 for $682,717. Total Water Fund of $1,077,817, amended by $76,000, for $1,153,817. Sewer Fund, total other expenditures of $218,067, amended by $33,000 for $251,067. Total Sewer Fund of $674,217, amended by $33,000 for $707,217. For total enterprise funds of $4,409,694.98, amended by a negative $999,683.28 for an amended appropriation of $3,286,511.70. Total appropriations of all funds, $7,429,862.56, amended by a negative $978,943.57 for an amended appropriation of $6,450,918.99. Section 2, any previously drawn warrants on these funds in excess of the original and amended appropriations are hereby authorized. Section 3, this ordinance is hereby declared to be an emergency measure necessary for the immediate preservation of the public peace, health, safety, and general welfare, and shall be effective upon passage.
Yeah, these are the year-end modifications, and as you can tell, they're almost all reductions. So our spending was reduced over what we anticipated.
Yeah, the big change here is, where is it? For water line somewhere. And that's because we didn't do that project this year, right?
That's correct. It got
Related.
pushed to the
Okay.
next year.
The other stuff as well. It's big money for me, but little money for overall.
In the percentage of the budget, there's smaller modifications, but again, they're almost all negatives. Ms. Grice's daughter had a basketball game tonight, so I excused her from attending based on the fact that they're all reductions. Any other questions?
Questions or? Because this is declaring an emergency, it's only requiring one reading, even though it's an ordinance. So at this time, is there a motion to accept the ordinance?
Make a motion, we accept CM-22-58.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Mr. Dorman?
Yes.
Ms. Pop?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Ms. Metz? Yes. Mr. Tracy?
Yes.
Mayor Miller?
Yes. Next is CM-22-59. Ms. Brosh.
It's a resolution adopting a development agreement for the north area of Stillwater Crossings. Whereas the municipality of West Milton, Ohio, the municipality intends to facilitate the residential and commercial development of a portion of the municipality located generally at the northwest corner of intersection of State Route 571 and Iddings Road, known as the Stillwater Crossings North area, all to improve the quality of life for the residents of the municipality. And whereas in furtherance of its efforts to cause the residential and commercial development of the Stillwater Crossings North area, and in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code, Section 5709.40, the municipality may create incentive districts for parcels of real property located within the municipal corporate boundaries of the municipality, declare improvements to such parcels of real property located in the incentive district to be a public purpose, grant real property tax exemptions for the increased value of real property in the incentive district, require the owners of real property in the incentive district to make service payments in lieu of taxes, and use those service payments in lieu of taxes for various purposes authorized by law. And whereas in connection with the potential creation of the incentive district, the municipality has determined to adopt a development agreement in the form attached to and incorporated into this resolution as Exhibit A, known as the development agreement, with the additional agreement that all other substantial project details must be submitted to the municipal manager for approval by council. Now therefore be it resolved by the council of the municipality of West Milton, Ohio, that Section 1, Development Agreement, this council hereby adopts the development agreement attached to and incorporated into this resolution as Exhibit A. All other substantial project details must be submitted to the municipal manager for approval by council. Section 2, further authorizations. This council further hereby authorizes and directs the municipal manager or other appropriate officers of the municipality to prepare and sign all agreements and instruments and to take any other actions as may be appropriate to implement this resolution. Section 3, open meetings. This council finds and determines that all formal actions of this council and any of its committees concerning and relating to the passage of this resolution were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and any of its committees that resulted in those formal actions were in meetings open to the public, all in compliance with the law, including Revised Code Section 121.22. Section 4, this resolution shall be effective from and after the earliest time provided by law.
Thank you, Ms. Brush. Manager Sheridan.
This is the final step in the process. We've been working on this for months. As you know, the process goes through the planning board. The planning board recommended approval of the project contingent upon a successful negotiation of the development agreement. Council agreed. We then took the development agreement back to the planning board, and they have unanimously recommended approval of that development agreement to you. And so this, as I explained earlier, this is the last step in authorizing the project to move forward. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
So, let me bring up an example and see
Sure.
if you can help me understand how this would work.
Sure.
If something is not directly addressed in the development agreement, landscaping or light fixtures or something along those lines,
Right.
how would we control that, or how would we manage those features
The
going
agreement
forward?
calls for any changes to be submitted to the manager in writing.
Mhm.
I make a determination whether they're substantial or not. If they're substantial, it goes through the normal process, which is laid out in the charter, which goes through the planning board and then ultimately to you. So I would suggest, just as it's worked on the south side, you're in close communication. There are minor changes, the location of a water line a few feet one direction to another, that does not require council approval, but anything that's even close to substantial is gonna be in consultation with the planning board and ultimately with you.
And would substantial, would that be design features of buildings, like exterior finishes? And
It could be if they deviate from what was proposed in the agreement.
Okay.
If it's consistent with what was in the agreement, no.
Okay.
You referenced the south agreement.
Correct.
Where would we had the issue where we don't have streetlights on the south
Right.
side, and that wasn't in the original development agreement. at what point was that negotiated with you or the,
Actually, it was committed that the streetlights would go in, and then there was a miscommunication, and so it wasn't moved forward.
when was that
We-
commitment made, though?
I don't believe the commitment was in writing. It was a verbal commitment. Again, wasn't involved in the negotiation of the South Side Agreement, but that was one of those pieces that I think between COVID and some other issues that took place this year, as you know, there was not nearly as much construction on the south side due to some issues with infrastructure, water
It's a gas line.
gas and electric, thank you. And so actually, we met with AES and have a proposal for the first 17, I believe, poles to go in. One of the important pieces is if those will be owned and managed by the HOA versus the village. And that decision or recommendation hasn't been made yet.
So when you
Obviously, if they're
say-
owned by us, we'll pay the bill.
When you say owned by the HOA, so it will be an additional expense accrued to
To
the
the HOA.
residents that live out there?
It would be a portion of the infrastructure that the village isn't required to maintain. Now, you can see that both ways. You might prefer to control those, and if you do, we can.
It's a public safety issue, don't you think, or?
It can be, absolutely. Streetlights are one of those that's changed dramatically. Used to, streetlights in great abundance. Now there's more of an issue of light pollution, and so folks see it both ways. Some folks are very adamant. I can tell you, I've gotten no complaints about the lack of streetlights. I don't know if most residents assume they'll eventually come or not. But whatever
But we require them within our community.
whatever priority the council puts on that issue, that'll dictate how it's handled.
And how will the residents that live out there now, you said it'll be the
Initially-
HOA's responsibility.
But they would be, right now, the HOA is controlled by the developer, and so we're involved with the developer. So most communication ends up at the ends up in my office one way or the other.
And in the meeting today, or was it yesterday?
Yesterday,
What did the pricing look like for,
I want to say, under the contract, it was somewhere around 15,000, if I recall correctly, to get the first 17 installed.
and how many total will it end up being for the whole?
That, I don't think they had the lighting plan laid out for the rest of all the Ryan homes. It's different for Randall, but this was just the first phase of the Ryan homes where the poles would be.
Okay, so would that qualify as substantial?
Absolutely.
So therefore needing to come to
It would-
council?
It would, well, I guess depending on what action, if the number of streetlights you consider substantial, or the fact that there are streetlights, that's something that staff will be communicating with you and getting your feedback. If you want it to come before you, it absolutely will.
And then I'm just a little concerned that if just one little section is 15,000, that's gonna be a lot. When I think of the TIF, I think of infrastructure. I think streetlights is part of infrastructure. I would have thought that would be covered under the TIF with streets, gutters, sewage, things like that. But in this circumstance, not, or?
The developer might be better to answer that question than I, if you're comfortable.
Do we want to maybe address, because now we're talking about the south side versus the north side, right?
But if
So I
our
don't
development
wanna
agreement
step-
on the north side is reflective or predicated
Well-
on our south side,
And so that, maybe let's ask that question. So how do we control this now with does this development agreement that we're going to vote on tonight, does that address these features so that these kind of issues would not happen moving forward?
I believe it does. At this stage, though, you don't have a site plan. So what we'll do is when they, if this is approved, they'll work with their engineers to start putting a site plan together. And we'll communicate that initially, it has to include streetlights.
Is that safe to say from the city perspective that we think of streetlights as infrastructure?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I hesitate to speak less confidently about the south side since I was not involved in all those
Yeah,
discussions.
And let me be clear, that was signed 6 years ago, your tenure here is
I-
2 years, and you picked up a ball with a lot of moving parts that haven't always been
Moving forward.
displayed towards you.
Moving forward, the additional language on the north side, I think gives a greater level of protection to the village to have input on any substantial detail in the project. It's worded that way purposely.
Would that then include engineering plans, approving engineering plans once they're done, or site plans?
Actually, reviewing them, I think, you've mentioned one of the issues like the width of the streets, and I think that's a conversation that should be had. I think the more guidance that we can provide before they draw them up, the better. The wrong time to bring that up is after they've paid the engineers a lot of money and you want them changed. So those are the kinds of features that I would ask that council, if you can let me know, streetlights, what other features and very specific opinions you have about the width of the streets or sidewalks or whatever else, whatever basic component that needs to be communicated to the developer going forward. And then he'll bring back his plans and you'll either approve them or not.
Does that information need to be included in this development agreement?
It's in, the specifics, no.
Yes.
There's nowhere in this agreement does it talk about the width of the streets. What
Okay.
it talks about is change and as the project develops. This is just getting started.
Okay.
And I also have a question on does the TIF for the north side fall, like, the two TIFs just merge together, or how does that, and how does the CRA affect?
I believe they're totally separate, but I'd rather that answer be given by the developer, if that's all right.
Yeah, those TIFs are separate.
Okay, so the north side would fall under a CRA and separate millage?
Correct, because it would be the parcels on the north side paying for the infrastructure on the north side.
In financing,
Yeah, we know who you are, but they don't.
Yeah. Jason Morris with Centerstone Development.
in financing, they're totally separate projects.
Correct.
And that's an important thing. Now, we talk about north and south side, and they're comparable projects. But it's really important to understand the financing is totally separate.
And just remind me, the millage on the with the CRA is what?
That, I'm gonna defer
I
to,
don't have that number off the top of my head.
I think it's in Ron Coffin Centerstone Development. It's the same millage throughout the whole community.
Or the development, not?
Well, it's the same millage, well, we're having an additional
I hope so.
10 mills on top
I
of
tried to say
the
that.
standard millages throughout the village.
And will
Just-
that be just for the north side? Because the south side already has like a millage on it, right?
I think it's for the north side.
just to restate, plans will come back before the planning board and come back to you, just like they did on the south side. You'll see those details, but I'm just suggesting the more communication up front, the better. And so this is just allowing the project to move forward. You'll still be the partner with them on what it looks like, the width of the streets, the sidewalks, all those kinds of things, and substantial or not.
Do we have an approximate date as to when that might come to us?
I've heard, what, 6 or 8 months of engineering?
Probably 5 to 6.
Okay,
Power
and
section.
then I guess my other question is, if there are specific things we want to see other than today, when would you like to
Sure.
know that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the sooner the better, but we're already taking the feedback that we've received to date and communicating that forward. So if there are specifics, with the street, location, width of sidewalk, those are things it's better to have sooner rather than later.
So, like in a couple weeks, or like the
Yeah,
end of this week, or?
No, not that soon. I would say by the end of January.
Okay. Obviously, you know, the longer you wait, then the chance
Right.
that you're gonna have to spend more money
Right.
on the engineering, and I
They
don't
won't-
wanna do
They won't
that.
have
but-
everything designed by that time. It would be if they were near the end of design, and then we said, hey, change the width of all the streets and
Right.
add sidewalks that weren't there,
Right,
that would be a redo.
okay.
I think a tricky thing for us is the project is so large. I mean, there's things that we might miss. You know, they might get started and then we have to come back and say, oh, well,
Well, and
that's the tricky part.
You have the
our
staff.
only practice for this has been the south side, which has had,
Which is
happened
all of
over
this.
a long period of time.
You
Like,
have staff and the planning board.
Yes.
I mean, so, I feel a little bad, how do I wanna say it?
We
I don't
don't
like
like-
the fact that it took us this long to realize we don't have streetlights on the south side. It seems like a pretty big oversight on
That's not-
everybody's part.
That's
Can I
not
address
that
this?
unusual on a project of this size.
I drove through every other development in Miami County, and none of them are without streetlights. I mean,
No, I mean, a detail,
Oh.
a piece, not streetlights specifically, that a detail at this point. It's not even 50% built the south side. 35%,
35%.
30%, so,
I'd like to address the streetlights. When we submitted the plans, it wasn't required by the city. And I think most of you have been to Settlers Walk. We have no streetlights down there either, okay?
really?
So staff actually asked us to do streetlights, and so we agreed to it, okay? We met, Monday morning
yeah.
with Miami Valley, and we're committed to doing it. I mean, it's very expensive. It's not in the TIF. It's coming out of our pocket. We're totally committed to it, from the south side and the north side. So, but I agree with you that there's a lot you need to catch up on and understand. But the one thing about a PUD is that every time we bring in a section, we have to bring it back before you. If it's just a regular subdivision and it's approved, you have no say-so on it. But on PUD, you have a say-so on every section, okay? So, and the staff's been great, we'll work with them, and our engineer is Choice One, which works well with the city. And be happy to have a meeting after we've been approved, because we will spend a lot of money and time getting it engineered out.
You have been nothing but an open book and gracious to every concern we've ever laid before you, Ron, well, your whole crew. That's never been an issue.
I think to Mrs. Cobb's point, we just don't know what we don't know, and, you know, if we're all on the same page, then that's good, but, half of council wasn't around when the south side was, approved, so this is all new to.
And half the council wasn't born the last time we had a development in town.
This is Craig Sweeney, I'm with Taft. I represent Centerstone and the development. Just kind of backing up for big picture, and I guess for education purposes, the development agreement in a PUD, mixed use, is the first step, right? Here's our minimum design standards. Here's sort of the rules that are going to govern the rest of the project. The big difference between the north side and the south side, to address Councilman Norman's concern, is we actually wrote in a requirement to even put in minor changes and run them by the municipal manager, right? So any changes, minimum design standards, the commercial stuff gets run by the village, and then Mr. Sheridan, or whoever the municipal manager is at the time, because as you know, these projects take years and years, they determine whether it's substantial or minor. If it's substantial, it comes to council. A minor change would be 3 square foot to one of the multifamily buildings, which we've attached plans as an example, right? That's not gonna affect the total number, it's not really gonna affect anything in his discretion, he can find any minor change. But anything substantial, we've gotta come to you. An actual engineering plan is substantial, right? So we're gonna have to come back to you to get approval for that, because it is a mixed-use development, like they said. Once we get the engineering, if there's changes to the engineering subsequently, we've got to come back and get reapproval for the new engineering. I think one of the questions in the email was for a potential YMCA. If that were to happen and we were to get the funding for that, we've got to come back to council again and say, hey, here's what we're thinking for the YMCA, and those concerns will be addressed later, right? The development agreement, look at it as just an outline, right? Here's the outline of what we're going to do. our minimum basis. And for the residential stuff, I think some people were getting caught on the minimum design standards for the actual residential houses. Those are bare bones, right? The ultimate HOA and the residents over there may decide on greater restrictions once we get closer to that. But again, it's got to come back and be approved by council, if that were the case. Okay?
What's the PUD stand for?
Planned unit
Planned use
development.
At our recent zoning meeting, I made a commitment to them that once we get the houses designed, because, you know, we're gonna be the builder on that, we're gonna bring it back before you guys and let you see them, okay? Before we really do the final commitment. So that way it's a true open book.
Would that be the same for the apartments? as
Yeah.
well?
Well, we've already showed you some plans, but,
Yeah, once we get the full blueprints.
right.
And I just know when you answered in an email that, the plans we saw for the single story, you know, that you had given us, and then the ones that we saw in Springboro for the, double, like
Yes.
two-story, which you mentioned that this was more focused toward like older residents.
Correct.
But I know in our, township meeting recently, you know, they spoke that there's a lot of younger people looking for rentals. That's what we heard in Miami County, that there's this high percentage of this 30 to, you know, age range that are looking for rentals too. So, I don't know, I didn't know if this was a set thing or if then we'd still kind of discuss if we wanted more options. I don't know.
Well, keep in mind, part of why we're geared the way we're geared is because of our conversations relative to the school. So if we were gonna say, do 2 stories and try and attract a bunch of younger families, but still ask for that all to be tax abated, then we're creating a greater impact on the schools, you know, without them getting what would normally come to them.
Which would be
A different camp.
We did do a market study, and I don't think we've given that to you, but I think we should, which backs up the plan that we had presented.
I think we saw that at some point.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Don, I didn't mean to cut you off earlier, so does this kind of answer where you were going with the question?
Well, the big question was, so it's two separate, so money can't be used from one side to do stuff on the other.
That's correct.
Okay, so they're completely,
Totally separate.
completely separate. And it's technically a separate TIF? Correct. Do we have to vote on another TIF at some point, or,
You already have.
so it's in place?
So, quick question, street width minimums and like sidewalk requirements, those are actually in our codified ordinances, right? All right, what about, and streetlights, but aren't a part of that?
I'll defer, Mr. Herron, you know if that part's in there?
I'd have to look to see how that's.
I apologize, I don't know about the
No,
other
that's okay.
requirements.
I've done quite a bit of reading, and while exhilarating, it does put you to sleep, so. All
Pretty thick.
right, thanks.
If you've done the reading, does it include?
I can't remember,
I thought you were leaving us in suspense.
Oh, man.
All right,
I don't know.
Is there any other questions or discussions?
I would feel remiss to not mention that my biggest concern through all of this with the apartments, which I know you explained, is for the people at home, to make the TIF work, requires a certain amount of commercial, and that commercial is the apartments. But I would be remiss to not take the opportunity that my biggest concern is possibly putting kids in our school system, that our school system cannot react fast enough to respond to, and they're not being made full with tax because that money's going back to pay for the infrastructure. I know on the south side that you guys more than made an effort to reach out to the school system on that, and that did not go anywhere. Not quite sure what efforts have been made this time. But that is my biggest concern, is that,
And I think we got the numbers from Andrew Brossard, and it was 0.7 kids per household.
so far to the south, it hadn't put a whole lot of new kids or new stress on it. Absolutely.
So
I would.
Was it 0.5 per household?
I think they projected
so-
0.7, it's been
I think
less
it's
than that.
well below our wildest guesses
Yeah,
on what,
so it's,
and everything we come up with was a guess.
Yeah.
I mean,
And not to relitigate it, but as we attach to the development agreement, the costs associated with the multifamily developments on the south side, based on the market study, have proven prohibitive for young families to come in and move into those.
And when you say apartments though, I don't even wanna call them apartments, what do you call them? Because they don't look like an apartment, they look nice.
Yeah.
What,
well, they're not a townhouse because they're not two
I don't know,
stories.
but they're very nice. I just want,
Duplex, quadplex.
yeah, I just wanna, relay that to the public. And then also, we took, some tours of, Jason is one of the builders, and he just does beautiful homes, beautiful custom homes, so
When he was
it's
looking
really
at the
exciting.
apartments that they built 20 years ago, they look very nice
Very
20
nice,
years later.
yes,
I mean,
so.
Hammers every nail except two.
Yeah.
He doesn't have time to do that.
any other questions? Any discussions? Okay. Is there a motion for the resolution?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to accept resolution CM-22-59.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Dorman?
yes.
Time for public to speak on this before you vote?
That was before all of the ordinances and resolutions began. Sorry, Jason.
Before you had all your discussions and information being exchanged and things of that type. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Cobb?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Ms. Metz? Yes. Mr. Tracy?
Yes.
Mayor Miller?
Yes. All right. Next on the agenda is CM-22-60. I'll turn it over to the question.
It's a resolution to approve emergency repairs at the wastewater treatment plant. Whereas it is necessary to replace two failing 21-year-old pumps that serve the nitrification towers at the wastewater treatment plant, and whereas the chosen vendor will provide the make and model of pumps necessary to make this emergency repair swiftly. And whereas the municipal manager is asking council to waive the bidding process required by Code Section 33.18A3, based on there being no benefit to the municipality to undertake bidding, and that the best interest of the municipality is served by waiving bidding due to the emergency nature of this matter pursuant to Code Section 33.18A9E. And whereas the project will be funded out of the 2022 operating budget. Now therefore be it resolved by the council of the municipality of West Milton, Ohio, that Section 1, the council hereby waives the bidding process pursuant to Code Section 33.18A9E and approves the purchase of two Vortex-type pumps from the chosen vendor that can provide said pumps in a reasonable time frame with a purchase amount not to exceed $32,000 in total. Section 2, the municipal manager and/or the director of service are hereby authorized, to locate the proper pumps, execute all the proper documents required, and to complete said purchase. Section 3, this resolution shall take effect and be enforced from and after its passage.
Manager Sheridan?
I'd like to defer to Service Director Herron to give you more detail, if I may.
Sure. So, I know most of you, if not all of you, have toured the wastewater plant. The nitrification towers are at the tail end of the treatment process, up by the building. There's two big tanks that are just closest to the building, so everything's pumped up to a pit, and the pit pumps up into the nitrification towers. They were having a problem with the flows in the pump. The water coming out basically was on these arms, and it was slowing. These pumps are submerged in a pit, with sewer water, so you can't visibly inspect them. and they also run on a variable frequency, so they're not just like all the time on or all the time off. So when they were checking it out, it turns out not one but two pumps that were put in the early 2000s both failed at the same time. And then there's a third one that's still not, it's not operating at 100%, but we'd obviously like to leave that in. And then once the two new ones are purchased, then we'll probably have the third one. We'll check and see if we can rebuild that third one, because I think that one's a little bit newer than the other two. So when we contacted a company called Process Pump and Seal out of Cincinnati, and they don't just like quote one pump, they actually try to get pricing on multiple, and they sell below list price to us. They always have whenever we've needed something. So the biggest deal is, of course, just like everything else, is to, if you have to have it, you want to get it ordered, because you never know what the lead time is going to be on these. So yeah, it just unfortunate that both of them went out at the same time, but unpreventable due to what they pump and how long they've pumped for.
Is it the kind of thing we should keep a third one on hand?
Yeah, we had one we replaced, and then we were gonna kind of wait until we got into better situation to maybe order another one. But hopefully we can rebuild the third one, and then maybe, if possible, we'll investigate rebuilding one of the other two later once we're back into full operation. So therefore we would have a spare.
Any other questions?
Is there a motion for the resolution?
Make a motion, we accept CM-22-60.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Mr. Dorman?
Yes.
Ms. Cobb?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Ms. Metz?
Yes.
Mr. Tracy?
Yes.
Mayor Miller?
Yes. Moving on to the manager's report. Manager Sheridan.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me first begin by reminding everyone that leaf season has ended. Our crew picked up 112 tons of leaves, so it was a very successful season. And perhaps the best news of the evening, the village's new website is up and completely running, and much of the hard work of staff, the team of Megan and Megan, put in a lot of work. And I think it's very pleased with it so far. But the real key to a new website is keeping it fresh, keeping it current. So any information that the council may have that you want updated on the website, please don't hesitate to email us or contact us in some way so that we keep it going. But so I'm very proud of that. Any other questions the council may have?
One about the website, and I'll apologize if this is already up there.
No, go
I did
ahead.
not see it, but the code of ordinances.
The entire code is not up there yet.
Okay.
We recently we just got it up and running, so they're still adding more information to it, but they will be.
Okay.
But that leads to another, I'm glad you brought that up. I would like to explore in 2023, we need to codify the ordinances. We're really way behind, so when we go to the book, we don't have the new ordinances that have been passed in the last several years. I'm not exactly sure how many years it's been since the last codification, but I think it's appropriate to get it recodified and then get that information up on the website so it's accurate and complete.
Okay. And then also putting out, and again, I did not check it today, so
That's
I don't,
okay.
but are we putting the information of what we're doing, so the
Agendas?
legislation and the agendas and all
Yep,
that's up there?
agendas, packets, meeting schedules, all that will be on there.
Okay.
I don't know that they were on for this meeting, but going forward, they will.
Okay.
Anything else?
The tap fee for the 253 North Main Street,
Yes, sir.
Yes.
so where are we at?
That is under
That's
old
under-
business. We can go there now.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right.
Left to right, top to bottom, I missed
Were
it.
you done with the manager's report?
I was, unless
Okay.
anyone has any other questions, so no. Where we are is that I made an effort to contact the gentleman since our last workshop. I've not heard back from him. I believe there was some discussion about how old the house was. I couldn't find that information. So I guess the real question is if the council can give some direction on waiving a portion or the entire, or I guess how you wish to proceed. Because the resident, I guess contractor would be the right term, has not been back in touch with me since he talked to you at the meeting.
And you've told him what our discussion was at the workshop?
I did.
And what,
I did.
where we were kind of coming? Okay.
The primary information I communicated was his request for assistance with paying the contractors.
Mhm.
That the village was not willing to do that.
As far as waiving the tap fee, I would propose that we waive the tap fee due to the
Okay.
circumstances surrounding this
All right?
for the 253 North Main Street.
I would suggest that is for the smallest possible size tap fee. If he wants a bigger line, then he can pay the difference.
Yeah, typically a 3/4 inch or 1 inch are the standard water line taps for most residences. I'd be very surprised if he wanted something different than that, but your comment makes sense. If for some reason he is, then yes, it'd be for that small size.
But even 3/4 and 1 inch are different, right?
But
Different
we
prices.
charge the same tap, because
Okay,
they're
fine,
both
that's fine.
considered standard. I would also suggest in the motion that you refer to the very unique circumstances in an effort to try to prevent others from coming to you with a sad story and they need their tap fee waived.
So is there a motion to waive this tap fee?
Make a motion that we waive the tap fee for, is it 253? Is that what it is?
Mhm.
253 North Main Street.
Due to unique situation,
That the property owner is
this
facing.
very specific circumstance.
Yes.
I'll work with the clerk to get the more detail on the motion,
And as long as it's a standard tap.
okay?
For no larger than a 1 inch line.
You got it.
Before we vote, I'll just say that I don't want to set the precedent of us having other folks coming in and telling us that, or asking for us to waive the tap fees. So, I think this was kind of a unique situation that was, something I hope we don't run into again, but
Yeah, me too.
This was a weird situation from a long, long time ago, so. But, so, motion, is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Dorman?
Yes.
Ms. Cobb?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Ms. Metz?
Yes.
Mr. Tracy?
Yes.
Mayor Miller?
No. All right. There's also under old business, a motion to adopt the council rules of decorum. And I think that everybody's had kind of a chance to look those over. And this is just, for a while now, council has been working without any guidelines for decorum during meetings, and in an effort to help streamline and allow everyone a chance to speak in a proper time frame, and to make sure that if people have questions, that those questions are getting addressed and answered and forwarded back to the individuals with the questions. Bless you. We don't always have the question, or we don't always have the answer or the information right in front of us. And so this kind of lays out the procedure for doing those or answering those questions. So I don't know if there's any other discussion or, yeah.
Is this on the website for the public to read, or how can they see
It wasn't
this?
until, I didn't place, wouldn't have placed it
Okay.
till you adopted.
Okay, but I mean, then it will be, or it
That,
will be
and I
here?
would,
And we'll make copies available,
Okay,
well,
I'd say be next to the agenda.
I would kind of like to have this at least, not permanently, but somewhere in large
Would you like to frame
format.
it and hang it somewhere?
Well, someplace that, so if somebody's here, they can see the rules of decorum and,
Okay. We can
those
do
are,
that.
you know, at least for now, until this is,
Sure.
everybody get used to it, so. Any other discussion for the rules of decorum?
You think Ms. Brush could read it to everyone so that we know what's going on? I don't think we've ever read it aloud.
yeah.
You want me to read it?
It doesn't matter. Do you want me to read it?
Sure.
All right. Do you want me to read just the numbers or the entire thing?
Whatever you like.
Probably just the numbers.
The numbers, okay.
The guidelines.
We ask that you honor the following guidelines. When the floor is open, only one person may address the meeting at a time. Please raise your hand and wait to be recognized by the mayor or the village official running the meeting. Then step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Comments should be specific and brief, limited to 5 minutes or less. The public comment portion of the meeting is for comments only, and questions will not be responded to in the meeting. Questions for the mayor and council should be forwarded to the village manager via email, phone call, or appointment. Number 2, when the floor is open with regards to pending legislation, comments must be limited in scope to the ordinance or resolution under consideration. When the floor is open to bring general concerns or comments before council, please address them to the council directly, and please do not interrupt any official, staff, or citizen that has the floor. Please do not interrupt discussion between council members at any time. Reserve your objections, concerns until the appropriate time and the floor is open. Cameras are permitted only in the designated area of the council chambers. Those operating a camera must remain with the camera while it is filming. The designated area is the southwest corner of the council chambers. I think that's it.
All right. Thank you. Is there a motion to accept, or do you have a question?
Not related to that.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept the rules of decorum?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we accept the council rules of decorum.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Dorman?
Yes.
Ms. Cobb?
Yes.
Mr. Hurst?
Yes.
Ms. Metz? Yes. Mr. Tracy?
Yes.
Mayor Mellon?
Yes. Yes, sir.
While we're still under old business,
Yes.
can I get some further clarification on the whole thing with the street lights? Since that really didn't fall under a discussion with the legislation as it was, I was kind of out of line with that, mixing it in there, but I want to make sure I understand. Mr. Kaufman referenced that they would be paying for it. I thought you
Installation.
referenced,
Installation.
okay,
The initial installation, the question was, are they gonna be owned by the HOA? Then they would pay the electric bill on a monthly basis, because AES, they want you to rent the poles and rent the light fixtures, and it's pretty significant over time. You could buy them if you're willing to pay up front. So there's a couple of different ways to do this. In other communities, I have not run the numbers here, it made a lot more sense to buy them outright than it did to rent them from the power company.
and how do we do it to the rest of West Milton?
Right now, I believe we rent everything. I don't think we own any of it, other than there's 14 downtown?
Yeah.
14 downtown that we own and maintain. Because we already have a bucket truck and maintain those, that makes it more
And those are
possible.
the quaint light pole ones that
Yeah.
aren't telephone poles with a,
Cobra heads. They don't have Cobra heads, they have the nice, more aesthetic looking, more appropriate for a downtown area. So there's a
Okay.
lot of questions to be answered on how does the village want to approach it? Do we want to own them? Do we want to rent them? Do we want the HOA to rent them? When he said he would pay for them, it's getting them installed. There's an initial cost. And when he says he's gonna pay for them, I don't know if that means the developers or the HOA is gonna pay for them.
Because that's two different things.
It
The
is.
HOA is the
It is.
residents,
Well, it is, but it's controlled by the developer until the residents get to a certain portion.
but the tab is paid by the,
Yes,
okay,
yes.
that's,
Yes.
okay.
What would happen, and I don't know if this is even a possibility, but if the HOA ever dissolves?
That's a good question. I'm not nearly as well versed in HOA law in Ohio. I know how it worked in other states, and that's a real concern.
Okay.
So I hesitate to try to answer that question. I don't know if Ms. Broche has any knowledge on HOA law or
Not
not.
off the top of my head, no. about
That's
it
something we'd have to look
dissolving.
into, but, yeah.
I would hate for 30 years from now that all of a sudden the streetlights turn off because the HOA dissolves and if they were the ones paying that electric.
And I've seen maintenance stop happening, not streetlights specifically, but retention ponds not maintained, pumps not replaced, because people stop paying for whatever reason. So there are good and bad aspects to an HOA.
And just from my own understanding, there's a part of me that kind of wants to know how we got to a point where we've had people living out there for 2 years without what everybody else in town has. If it is part of our ordinances that there be street lights, you know, how did that oversight happen so that we make sure going further with the rest of the south side and with the north side that we don't have any such oversights?
I'm not sure I can answer that completely.
Well, I know you're in that whole thing of, this was signed 6 years ago, you came on the job, what, 2 years ago, year and a half, whatever?
Yeah, it seems like a lot
I know it's
longer
putting
than- seems like a
putting
lot
you in a
longer than
pickle,
that.
and I'm not putting the onus of
Part of it
the
may.
incident on your watch,
No,
but
and I
we've got
understand
to
that.
deal with it on our watch.
A part of it may have been answered when Mr. Kaufman explained that Settlers Walk, which has been the project you've compared it to, doesn't have them. And so he's using that same model. And it appeared to me you were all surprised that
I
that was
was
the case.
completely surprised.
Yeah.
So I think he was operating from, that's the model he's using, and it's not surprising to me. There are almost as many, no, that's not true. There's a growing segment of people that see light pollution as a problem. And so you might have minimal streetlights, or in some developments, no streetlights. So it's not nearly as common or required as it was 30 years ago.
We just, how long ago was it, Ben? We just upgraded all ours to.
But that's to go to LEDs. That's to make it cheaper.
More efficient.
Yeah.
But they're also a heck of a lot brighter.
Yeah.
I can read a book in my front yard, so I can
Is
appreciate
that a
the
good
light.
thing or a
No,
bad thing?
I'm making that comment from the light pollution standpoint.
Okay.
I mean, but,
In other communities where we've gone through that same process, we ended up removing 25 to 35% of the poles because it was too bright. When you upgrade, and it was so much cheaper, we'd take them out. Especially if you're renting them and you've got more light than you need, you take the post out.
that and, Councilman Hurst and I drove through a couple other communities, and they're, like an older Ryan Homes development had the, what do you call them, the big ones that hang over?
Cobra heads.
Cobra heads. I like that now that I picture it. I'm not so sure how you make the decision between the more quaint ones like we have downtown and the Cobra heads. I don't know.
It's whether or not you want to focus on vehicular or pedestrian. Pedestrian or not, Cobra heads are not for pedestrians.
That your description makes sense to me because they make a difference when you're driving.
So you've only got 2 entrance and exit points on the south side. For the most part, it's more of a pedestrian community rather than driving on the inside of it.
That was the other thing that kind of dismayed me. There's no lighting at all at the entrance to the south side. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it just.
My impression is nobody ever
Nothing
asked him to
shining
put
on the sign, nothing. I mean, it seems like that would be beneficial when you're still trying to sell out a product.
we can pass that request along. Mr. Kaufman's been very willing to work with us on those kinds of things. So if we think that's important, I think we should pass along that request to him.
I'll agree.
I mean, I think it would make it look nicer. I think it would pop. I think as people drive by at night, they would realize it's there.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have one more thing for the
Sure.
old business. On Saturday, there was the initial fundraising for the 4th of July celebration.
Yes.
I'd just like to thank all the businesses that donated their products to be auctioned off, all the people that volunteered their time and their efforts, and you know, the back pain that they endured to make this happen. All the people who came and participated in the event, and while it was a smaller turnout, it was still really nice, and hopefully next year it'll grow. I'd like to also thank all the high school students that came and volunteered. Without their youth and energy, man, I'm not sure how we'd have made it through in the time frame we made it through. And if anyone wants to be a part of the 4th of July group that helps, you know, fundraise and do all these things, you can get a hold of me, or you can contact Jeff and he will forward your information to me.
Sure.
And again, I'd just like to say thanks. And the 4th of July celebration happens because businesses in town and people here donate. It's not the firemen, it's not the city, it's just people, like-minded people who want to see a great event happen down at the 4th of July. So thank you. Appreciate it.
You guys have any numbers on what you raised?
It was just a little over 3,000.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's after all the bills are paid, so.
That's good. Good.
Is there any other old business?
I know of none.
Okay. Moving on to new business. No?
I don't have anything to say tonight.
Oh.
That's a first.
Oh.
That's not a bad
First
thing.
for Sarah.
Yikes.
It has been custom that we not have a December workshop, seeing how close it is. It's on the 27th this year, and it has been custom that we cancel that workshop, and then we'll have our first meeting on is it the first Tuesday?
No, because there's no election for somebody to swear
That's
in.
right.
I believe it's the
That's
second Tuesday.
Second Tuesday of January
Correct.
of 2023. Wow, this year's gone by.
Yes, it is.
So, is there a motion to cancel the workshop on December the 27th, 2022?
Make a motion that we follow the customary observance of canceling said workshop and enjoy time in our community and with our families.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstain? All right. At this time, we'd like to open the floor to comments by citizens regarding anything tonight.
Still coming, Barry?
Yes.
Jason Tinnerman, 1213 South Main Street. First, I just want to apologize for interrupting the meeting. From my memory, we used to allow citizens' comments after each piece of legislation. And that's really all I wanted to ask at this time, to apologize, but to ask you to consider putting that in your, changing back to that in your procedure. When council discusses, and especially when you have outside people coming in to answer questions to you guys, some of our questions might be answered then. It might raise other questions for us at that point. And by having only a chance to speak before anything is read or before any conversation goes on within council, it eliminates anyone in the community being able to have further input or further questions. So I think you're missing a resource of your community if you don't allow them to speak after each discussion. I realize it can open up a meeting to being a little bit longer, but it looks like you're doing things to address that as well. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Any other comments from citizens this evening? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I have lots of.
Have a good
lots
year,
of
everyone.
signatures.
Merry Christmas.
Lots of signatures.